This is the panel where I did not have to ask the panelists for bios and photos. So none of them wrote their bios. I just Googled them and I got their photos and I got their bios, and I wrote the bios that you find in that long PDF file that we emailed to all of you. And in any case, if I started listing everything that all of them have done, then we would do only that today. So I won't do that. I will instead give you the highlights of who our panelists are today. And really today we are also going to engage a different part of their work. So these are all well-known creative writers, we know that, but we hardly get to talk to them about their teaching. And I asked each one of them and they said they haven't actually had a chance to do that at a conference or whatever. They have the literary festivals and everything else to talk about their creative work, of course. So let me begin by introducing Akhil first. Akhil is a poet, translator, scholar, and a queer activist who teaches in the School of Culture and Creative Expressions at Ambedkar University, Delhi, in a program that is dedicated to a master's degree in creative writing. And for all we know, we don't know that there is another. This is the only MFA equivalent master's university degree program that I could find. I don't know, please correct us if we've got this wrong, but this seems to be the only one, and Akhil teaches in that. Akhil has a series of wonderful publications, poetry and scholarly books as well. His latest, I'm not going to list everything, his latest publication is an anthology called This World Belongs to Us that came out in 2020, which he edited with Aditi Angiras. And his anthology, Blood on a Bitten Tongue, Delhi Poems, which also came out in 2020. He translated Ravish Kumar's Laprek series, Ishq Mein Sheher Hona, As a City Happens in Love. That was also 2018. On a personal note, I met Akhil way back when in 2012. We had both returned from our respective PhDs and landed in St. Stephen's College to teach as ad hoc English teachers, much oppressed. And then we both went on to teach at Shiv Nadar University for 4.5 years, where we did a lot of work together. And I'm really grateful that I continue to be able to collaborate with him and work with him. Prayag Akbar, we all know that the famed Netflix series Leela is based on his debut novel, which came out in 2017. Prayag is also a former journalist and an editor. He's now faculty at Kriya University. And on a personal note, I can tell you that I get to lord over Prayag at CWP, and I keep telling him that he wrote Leela and it came true. So now the nation wants to know when he's going to write the utopia and turn the narrative of the nation around. So Prayag, please be on it. Srilata, K. Srilata is a professor of literature in the HSS's department at IIT Madras. She's a literary scholar, novelist, short fiction writer, translator, anthologist, and a poet. And she really has a very long list of publications. I'm not even going to try and list all of them. But her latest book of poems is called The Unmistakable Presence of Absent Humans, which came out in 2019. Her other books of poems are Bookmarking the Oasis, Writing Octopus, and she's also one of the translators and editors of the Penguin book of Tamil poetry, The Rapids of a Great River. Not many people will know that she's currently finishing up a multi-genre anthology. And I really think it's going to be the first of its kind, where on stories and narratives about disability that is going to come out this year with Amazon Westland. And on a personal note, Srilata has the singular distinction of being the very first friend I made in Chennai after I moved here in 2019. My very first friend outside of work. And as it happens, if you become friends with creative writers and academics, then you end up working with them. And I'm really grateful for all the work that I've got to do with her, both creative and scholarly, over the last year that I have known her. She manages to get a lot of people together in collaborations of all kinds, and I think that's a quality she shares with Akhil as well. So these are our people today, and the point is that all of them teach creative writing in their respective universities. And the interesting thing is that, and I'll let them tell us, and they will, as the very first thing they do, tell us really how different each of their situations is, even though they all share the common space of the academia to teach their creative writing classes in. The point of this panel, and I think the reason I put it on a PowerPoint is because we talked about what we could do in an hour and a half. And I wanted to also sort of briefly bring up why have this discussion at all. Turns out there's a sense that, you know, there is no creative writing pedagogy as such in this country, outside perhaps of the workshops that independent writers are teaching as independent workshops, and Parvin and Anil and Gitanjali are all here and they belong to that space. But the fact is that the history of creative writing in universities is quite old and quite deep. We just don't realize that. And it's isolated. So part of the point of this discussion is to really get a sense for how creative writing pedagogy has been evolving in the university space. And our three panelists occupy that space very differently. These are different places, and we'll need to appreciate where they are to look at the way in which their courses have evolved. That's one. And the larger objective is that if these three teachers and other teachers who don't necessarily work in the universities but outside, if we all sat together, would it be possible to say that, yes, there is actually a systematic pedagogy of creative writing, which has evolved from the Indian classroom, from the Indian space, and not just lament that there is no MFA, therefore there is nothing, which is another strain that one hears, that in the absence of MFA, there is no deep teaching practice. So we want to see whether that's true or not, and let's see what happens in the discussion today. The space of academia is also like it comes with its own, in which when a creative writing class is taught in the academic space, it already comes framed within certain assumptions and values. So Sundar, as he introduced CWP and its work to all of you, but also talked about Kriya's curriculum, he talked about how, you know, it's important that courses in creative writing, for example, are not, you know, the one-off things, that they're really a part of the curriculum, and so that the writing intensiveness draws from it heavily. And Prayag will tell us how he finds that working out in his teaching experience at Kriya. But it's not always the case. There are certain assumptions, there are certain binaries, for example. There's a difference of value that academic cultures place between, say, knowledge and skill, critical work, and creative practice. And we can't just wish these away. So clearly, if creative work and creative writing especially has evolved, it has evolved in these spaces in response to that. So how have these writers and teachers work through this? And through this, the second point, especially what I'm hoping, because remember, university course, which you know, creative writers doing the workshop model outside don't have to face, is there has to be a syllabus with grades. You have to finish doing whatever within a certain time period, and it has to be graded, and there are formats and requirements of exams. Srilata will tell us how all of that worked out at IIT with her. So what is the granular detail of practice? I think that's one thing we are hoping will come out of this discussion. So how we are going to do this is, right after this, I'm going to request each of the panelists, starting with Srilata, to introduce themselves, the space they occupy, the kind of courses and how long they've taught. And then from there, we will move on to a much more free-floating discussion around certain questions that have to do with the points on this PDF. That this has been we talked about it and we figured this is what we want to figure out today. So we'll try and keep our responses and our questions around these two things that I've laid out. So Srilata, may I request you to start, but may I request you to read this first?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ananya, for a very warm introduction and welcome. So this is a poem that I wrote some years ago. It was actually, written in response to a writing prompt that I often give my writing students. I kind of get them into the classroom and then tell them to leave the class, go out on a walk. IIT Madras, located in the middle of a forest and so on, as you know. And I asked them to take detailed notes and come back, even photographs, and then write about that walk. So this is what we call a walking poem. And I ended up, part of that exercise, I actually ended up writing this. And Ananya, as you can see, has set this poem to image. Yeah, so I'll read it. Could you zoom this a bit? Not able to. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. A poem for my creative writing class out on a poem walk. Did they walk well, those words you didn't know you had? Or did they fall asleep under the stillness of old trees? Did new words step out of those trees? Did they smuggle themselves into your backpacks, into the ringing silence of your mobiles, into that thing that is turning into a poem? Did your poems walk many forest miles? Did thorns pierce their heart lines? Will your lines fly through either, land in my inbox? Will they not? Your fawn-like poems with heart lines. Thank you again. So as Ananya said, I teach at IIT Madras in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. It's one of the oldest departments at IIT Madras and also at all the other IITs. Not many people know that, right? So just by way of, further introduction. So one thing to keep in mind is that the Indian Institutes of Technology are institutes. They are not quite universities. And I think this is a crucial difference in nomenclature. Institutes are meant to specialize in one area and teach skills, in this case, engineering. Unlike universities where there's a more broad-based approach to disciplines and an accent on the arts, humanities, and even pure sciences. So I found myself back in 2002 at this institute, IIT Madras, a newly minted PhD with very different training from what was expected of me at the institute. And I kind of joined at the tail end of this time. For the longest time, HSS departments were seen as service departments. So if you were an English faculty, your role was very clear. You taught communicative English semester in, semester out. And you, if you had the bandwidth and the energy or whatever, then you would also be allowed to kind of offer a literature elective, allowed being the operative word here. So that went on for a couple of years. And as I said, I was fresh out of a university system, so very different from the institute, with a PhD in women's writing and the Dravidian self-respect movement. I was also a poet who was trying to find my feet once again after years of being a PhD student. And you know what that does to your mind, right? I mean, there's one part of the mind that just switches off, and the poetry mind just went for a while, right? Went into hiding. And the other thing, I think, was that I was also a new mother at the time. So, I mean, a lot of things going on. All of this is important, I think equally important, because it meant that I found myself in search of some kind of an open space to write from, to read, and to think from, to live from, right? And so, which is why I actually floated, I put up this course curriculum on creative writing, half expecting that the department would just kind of knock it down, except they didn't. And over the years, I like to think that the course has given others that space and time, students caught in certain expectations, trained to deliver in one particular way, kind of slowly discovering other selves, So I think there's a certain kind of enabling that I'm hoping has happened with my students. I also teach, in addition to this, courses on literatures and translation, courses on the novel, and a variety. I've taught about 15, 20 courses over the last many years. I've taught there for about 18 years. I mean, do you want me to talk about the contours of the classroom and so on at this point? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if quickly, because I think that will give a sense for the contours of the different
All right.
classrooms.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, Yeah, so one of the other questions that I think this panel is hoping to address is the nature of the creative writing classroom in our different locations and how they are contoured, right? And obviously this would guide curriculum, it would guide pedagogy and so on. So I'll probably tell you a little bit about that. So as all of you know, and Akhil and Prayag and I talked about it with Ananya earlier this week. So the contours of a typical Indian classroom are complicated and also enriched by the presence of multilingual learners and of faculty too, right? So this was and continues to be true, particularly true of my classroom at IIT Madras. And often I've had students who have registered for the creative writing course, which is an elective course, who are not very comfortable at all in English. And and it's not very clear why they've come to this course. Sometimes they have not been allotted other courses, so there are those extraneous reasons. But also many of them just wander in saying, okay, here, hello, what is this? There's this word creative, and can we get something from this space, right? I think so. All sorts of reasons people kind of literally drift into the course, and I have no prerequisites. So this is something I took a very conscious decision on. This is actually, for whatever reason, this is the the only course that the department offers on creative writing. So that's the thing. And so I have no prerequisites, and people with engineering backgrounds and all kinds of students kind of wander in. And now a very small subset of students who write, who are actually far more comfortable with, their mother tongues, other Indian languages than they are with in English, I usually discover are actually very engaged readers in their own languages that they're familiar with. And so I leverage that sometimes as far as possible. I ask them to try writing in the language in which they are comfortable. So I also, for instance, as part of the course, set texts in translation. I encourage sometimes students to bring in other texts that they found, from different contexts that they have found interesting or illuminating in some ways. So my classroom is, sometimes I also have a little module on translation, because I think that kind of, gives students from, more sort of vernacular kind of backgrounds a toehold into this, right? And my classroom is, of course, additionally complicated by the presence of a mixed group of engineering students on the one hand, undergraduates, and on the other hand, master's students from English studies and development studies, because we started a master's program much later. Right, so this is the other complication, but also it enriches the classroom. And I think both sets of students learn from the other by engaging with the other. And each group of students brings with them a different disciplinary baggage, different levels of reading, understanding of what it means to read a literary text. But all of that makes it all the more exciting, right? Then, of course, there is caste, there is class, gender composition, typical of, again, especially, publicly funded institutes or universities, the complications that, the complexities of that, sorry. So sometimes I find, personal accounts that students turn in as part of the course. I find that they can be very, very telling, and I find them fascinating, right? So my course typically comprises of modules on poetry, on fiction, non-fiction, because this being the only course, I do try to pack it in a little. I don't have the luxury of like having, focus courses dedicated to each of these modules, which would be the ideal, actually, right? You really can't do it all like that, right? So
actually, that would be maybe, Srilata, a good place for Akhil to jump in.
Yes,
Akhil,
sure.
if you could, again, similarly give a sense for the space you work at, how you came to teach creative writing, how you taught yourself to write it, any of these things that, how you taught yourself to teach creative writing, being a literary scholar, you're a trained literary scholar, if you want to touch upon these.
So I'll briefly touch upon like what has been my own disciplinary training, and then just briefly outline the kind of space that I teach in now, the kind of department in school. So although my BA and MA were in English literature in Delhi University, and the PhD again was in a South Asian literature and a culture department at SOAS. So all of that had actually trained me to become a literary studies person, right? A teacher and a critic who would closely read and unpack literary texts rather than write it. And as I was moving on that track, my own creative practice was actually developing at the edges of that disciplinary training. pushed along by good teachers, pushed along by some well-designed courses in Delhi University, which made us familiar with literary texts and debates, which transformed our worldview. So, and creative writing then became a vehicle or an instrument to express these new ways. But it was parallel to what my disciplinary training was. And over the years, I taught in different literature departments, as Ananya also told you, both in public and private universities before I joined this current space. And I want to spend some time thinking about this space. I joined School of Culture and Creative Expressions at Ambedkar University, Delhi, which combines practice and studies pedagogy. It's about 10 years old. It was founded when AUT was set up about a decade ago. We are a state university under the Delhi government. And our school has like 4 master's programs. 2 of them are practice programs. One of them a master's in literary art, creative writing, in which I teach, and one in visual arts. And the other 2 are studies programs in performance studies and film studies. So you see, this is the context in which a writing program operates in my context. We briefly also had a pilot program in performance practice dance, which we hope to resume soon. So the school was set up with a particular imagination in mind. When I joined, I discovered that those bunch of folks who had set up the school, from what I understood, they were dissatisfied with the nature of practice pedagogy in the country. The one which had largely existed for visual arts and performative arts so far. Their assessment was that what most practice programs in the country end up doing is that they have a heavy, very lopsided emphasis on individual practice alone, and that they are primarily sort of generative in nature, rather than critical or reflective. So they make the student constantly produce more work and do not institutionalize enough occasions or safeguards where they might stop in their tracks and reflect on this work. Neither did those practice programs have enough reading-based, analytical or theory courses which would familiarize the students with important debates in the area of their practice. Which would take them out of their comfort zones, which would take them out of what their familiar instinctive role models are in their creative practice, which would change their ways of thinking, their instinctive assumptions about the world. So the idea was to set up this space and aim to produce, and that's our hope. And it comes across again and again in our school meetings, this idea of the critical practitioner. And someone who for the 2 years as they create their work would also work in a context where they would grow intellectually. Someone who would produce work, but also think carefully about what they're producing. Someone who could set up their work in conversation with whatever important artistic or intellectual debates are happening in her time. So but how do we ensure this? So one of the ways I found my colleagues who were working far before me had ensured this by almost an equal distribution of courses that were devoted to practice and those that were reading based, analytical or theory courses. So the idea was that you develop your own artistic or writing practice by learning about and engaging with a wide variety of texts and debates in your field, right? And these could be canonical, these could be new, these could be cutting edge, and that your own work is in a conversation with them, where you get to rigorously engage with your own linguistic, regional, or social location as writers. And we ensured that one in the shape of a foundation course, where a 3-semester arc of a foundation course, which they engaged in, where they engage in important questions that critical theory opens up for us. But there's one course which I want to specifically talk about in order to give you a concrete sense of what this means. And in fact, I was very happy to note that my colleague, Professor Bilinder Dhanoa, is also among the participants. And she is the one who teaches this course. So you'll get a sense of what this critical practitioner idea is. So one of the course she teaches is a 3-semester arc, which every creative writing master student takes, which is called Concept Development and Experimentation, like 1, 2, 3. And, there is a way in which it incorporates research and critical thinking into the creative process. Let me explain how that happens. So other than in the initial stages where she works with particularly skill-based, writing-based exercises, which help students to come to grips with the particular elements of narrative or voice or point of view or setting or characterization or dialogue. Essentially though, what she does is she pushes each student to isolate and work around a particular idea or area of concern, a concept, which would then become the backbone of their long-form creative writing project that they would do over the course of the 2 years of their program. they are pushed to research on this area, to read up widely on it, to think of comparative authors which would help them, to conceive and then execute a long-term creative writing project which would emerge from this conceptual research, right? So by the end of the course, I'll give you an example. One student who was concerned with the idea or the area of climate change in the Anthropocene, he ended up writing under Professor Dhanua a collection of non-fiction essays on the role of the river Yamuna as it crosses the city of Delhi, right? Another student who was studying the history of lexicons, like makings of dictionaries across history, ended up writing a long-form creative lexicon of Urdu words, which explored the preoccupation and cultural complexities of like North Indian Muslim life. And finally, someone who was interested, one of our current students who's interested in the concept of autonomy in family spaces, is currently writing a collection of short fiction and flash fiction, which addresses precisely this space, right? So the idea is that research is not the outside of the creative process, right? Reading is not an interruption, but instead a facilitator to your own writing. And critical thought sharpens rather than impedes your capacity to express yourself. And that's what the hope which my colleagues like Dr. Anita Cherry and Professor Bilinder Dhanua and I sort of carry in this creative writing program, that hopefully with this kind of combination of courses and such a design of individual practice courses, we will produce this fantasy that we all have in SEC of this critical practitioner, which, at various points of time, we find ourselves with partial successes and some moments of failure. Yeah. So your mic is muted.
Thank you, Akhil. That was very, very comprehensive. So between Srilata and Akhil, we get a sense for a space of a public university, public institution, somebody who's been teaching one course for 18 years, Akhil, who is now part of a course that's a part of a set of courses, as a part of a degree, and he's given us this concept of the critical creative practitioner, and we'll come back to that. From Akhil, we move to Prayag, who occupies a very different space to teach his creative writing class in. So Prayag, if you could come in with what you have to say about where you're teaching and your experience of teaching the creative writing course.
Sure. Thanks, Ananya. So just briefly about myself, I used to, as Ananya mentioned, I used to work as a journalist, and I quit to work on my novel, which eventually came out after years of struggle. And then, and after Laila came out, I had the opportunity to teach at a few, a couple of creative writing workshops, which I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the practice of teaching, of working with students. And, one of the things that you get in a creative writing workshop outside of the academic space is you meet people in, various stages of their lives with various kinds of life experience. And they bring sometimes really fascinating life experience to the practice of writing fiction. But I also found it a kind of frustrating experience because, especially those, very brief workshops I taught, because I felt it was a very limited engagement. I didn't get enough time with the students, to get into really the essentials. Over the course of a weekend, it's sometimes impossible to transmit some of the things that, some of the lessons you've learned along the way. And when I heard about Kriya and heard about the mission, I was very interested in what they were trying to do, and I applied. And of course I got the job. It was great for them to take a chance on me because I hadn't taught before at this level, definitely. So I was just thinking, that not only is Kriya a new university, it's also it's a fairly new kind of university, at least in the Indian academic space. It's a liberal arts institution, and it has, with a relatively high tuition. So what this does is, and though there's a good, Kriya's financial aid is a very important part of how Kriya goes about things. I think it's fair to say that Kriya attracts a lot of students from more privileged backgrounds than you would find in a state university or in technical institutes like IIT, where you have a much wider cross-section of the Indian population. And I think, I'd say that how that matters is obviously because, I'm teaching creative writing in English, and I'd say, the vast majority, maybe 80 or even 85% of my class were proficient or excellent English speakers. We had students from all across the economic spectrum and the language spectrum in terms of acquaintance with the language. But, most of my class had a fair amount of reading, fair amount of, work already in this area. Some people had written books before this, you know, and I was teaching 18 and 19-year-olds, mostly 19-year-old, students. So it was, I mean, I think there is quite a difference in my experience than Srilata's and Akhil's. And it was interesting to me actually when I came to Kriya, when I first had a conversation with Sundar and you know, some of the members of the academic council with conducting the interviews and all of that. And it was interesting to me to see how much they did emphasize creative writing. You know, I thought it would be kind of something perhaps on the margin of a new university, perhaps not even, you know, not even taught at all. But Sundar made it, you know, it was something that became clear to me quite early on that creative writing was something that they wanted to think about and they wanted to offer the students, wanted to think about. And I really appreciated that. And I think in our first conversations, we thought about why this is important for students. And I think all writing, of course, encourages some kind of systematic thinking. It encourages or demands clarity in expression. And, you know, we also thought that for the very basic purpose of trying to think innovatively, creative writing is a great tool for, you know, for students of every stripe, I think, because it demands you create something new, something fresh. And it also demands that you engage with all the work that's come before, not all the work, but at least a good amount of the work that's come before. It demands that you read, that you've read enough to be able to produce something good, something new. And I think that's part of how people in kind of every discipline, whether it's scientific, commercial, you know, whether it's artistic, in every discipline, you kind of, if you want to do something new, if you want to innovate, if you want to take the conversation forward, you need to know what has happened before you, and you need to be able to think innovatively. And I think from the sense I got from the powers that be at Kriya was that they felt creative writing was something that would enable students to think like this. And so I tried to, you know, plan the course around with those kind of principles in mind, with those ideas in mind, you know, that it's not just about creating a story, which of course it is, which is hard enough in itself, but also, you know, how to use the knowledge that comes before, but without copying or simply copying, but, you know, use that to create something fresh and different. And, you know, I think a lot of things that happened at Kriya, the way the classroom was set up was also really, you know, I appreciate it because it was kind of taken for I mean, the institution, I took it for a given that creative writing would be offered. I was also quite pleased to see how they would, you know, how they wanted to teach, how they wanted me to teach it, which was my division head was like 15 students tops, and you know, you work with them intensely, try and get them to, you know, each of them should produce something original, like a significant work by the end of the course. It was open to all the students, you know, not only English literature, everyone is encouraged to take it. It was, I mean, our terms are short. It's a trimester system, so it's 12 weeks together, 2 sessions a week. So it's not like a great deal of time to work with the students, but I mean, I think you can make certain inroads or impacts even in that format. And I think, and working with younger students was also really good because it opens up possibilities in how you can teach, and it creates restrictions, it opens up possibilities. So all in all, it's been, I found because the institution was kind of so supportive of the ideas of what I was trying to do, I found it quite a welcoming space in terms of how to set up the course and how to go about the course.